Hi people and hello my Chili Con Carnage crew, it is Chili here from Live Listen Erased, and I'm bringing you a special episode. This one's going to be discussing legendary albums with one bad song. Yes, that's right, bands all around the world, when they start off, they hope to really get to that point where they go, I want to make a legendary album. It is the dream of every musician to make one. And it is very hard to achieve. Very few albums out there are true legendary status with every single track just clicking and being absolutely phenomenal. So when a legendary album comes along and there's just that one bad track on it, it can really be frustrating and undermine the whole effort. So here's a list of, 11 albums that I found that are quite flawless except for one track. The first one we are going to be putting on this list is going to be Korn's album Follow the Leader. Now I did a very in-depth video in regards to this for a retro review episode, so I will have the link up somewhere around here if I remember. But Follow the Leader was an absolutely stunning album by the band, its third release, and of course one that it just broke records, didn't it? It really put them on the map. You know, Korn had a massive following beforehand, but at the end of the day, this Follow the Leader album is what really made the band a household name. You know, there were tracks beforehand, Adidas of course, but when you go on to this one, you had Freak on a Leash and Got the Life that just absolutely blew up at the time. Fantastic video clips, of course, going with that. Now, if you are familiar with Korn, you already know the track that I'm going to be talking about, but if not, then we're talking about the track All in the Family, which features Fred Durst. Now, many people out there who are going, yeah, Fred Durst, of course it's a bad track. It was a bit of a joke track that the band initially laid out. You know, they said, alright, we're going to do this little rap together while we're in the studio, because they were recording, at the time they were recording, Fred Durst and Chino were in the studio just checking out what they were doing, and, they thought, we're going to get drunk, let's record a rap. And what ended up happening, it made it to the record, much to the behest, I guess, of Jonathan Davis. All in the Family is a horrendous track, and I wish that it never got played live. Unfortunately, it did, and that is where my correction is for the episode on Retro Review, where I said this song never got played live. It did. So, why is it so bad? It's quite simply a terrible rap song, with just two people doing their duet together or whatever, just rapping off each other, and it is so derogatory of, what they're saying. I don't want to utter it because I don't want to get demonetized. Listen to it at your own risk. But at the end of the day, Follow the Leader and the slang words that they were using on here, it just undermines the whole point of one of the early tracks from their first album. And words can hurt, so that's the main thing. I know Jonathan Davis has regretted it ever since its release, and fortunately the record is now as is, but at the end of the day, this is an incredible album, only made worse by that one little track. So that's the first one for this list. The next one on this list is going to be the Led Zeppelin album, Houses of the Holy. Now I'm guessing you're wondering, why did I put Led Zeppelin on this list? Because aren't all their songs legendary in the eyes of everyone else? I guess that might be true. Led Zeppelin does have that status among the rock community, and they do have a lot of songs that are absolutely phenomenal, but at the end of the day, Houses of the Holy does have this one really bad track. And that is, amongst all of these phenomenal songs, The Grunge. It's very disco Latin song that just feels so out of place on this album. I don't even know what to make of it sometimes, because it is a terrible track amongst so many great songs here. You got The Song Remains the Same, a track that was named after, the film. The Song Remains Insane, of course, portrayed as well by Soulfly, and you got all these other tracks that just are so good. Over the Hills and Far Away, Jamaica, No Quarter, The Ocean, Dancing Days, Rain Song. These amazing tracks. And then in the middle of the album, on the fourth track, we get The Grunge, this disco Latin disgusting thing, which is quite interesting when you're looking at it, because This is quite a few years before disco really took off. Maybe Led Zeppelin knew something that we didn't. Maybe they're time travelers. Who knows? But this, when you listen to that opening riff, it's just it makes me cringe, and that's what I would probably call this track instead at the end of the day, because the grunge, horrendous. Skip this, and I do often when I'm playing this album. So yes, out of a legendary album, the one bad track, everyone. Next up on this list is going to be Deep Purple's album Burn. This is a bit of an overlooked album in the grand scheme of Deep Purple, because it came a few years after Machine Head, the absolutely flawless record that it was, and Smoke on the Water, the anthemic tune from the band. But, Burn, it came out a few years before a few lineup changes and Come Taste the Band. It was a bit of a murky period for them. I think Burn was one of their last greatest efforts here. You got absolutely great anthems like Mistreated, of course, Might Just Take Your Life, and the title track, Burn, as well. But at the end of the day, this was starting to get a bit more spacey rock. It was a bit different, and it was an odd album. And fun fact as well, when Lars saw Deep Purple live, he ran out to the record store the very next day and bought the very first Deep Purple record he found, which was Burn. So there we go, little fun fact for the day. Over this whole album's runtime, you got the classic staples that make up Deep Purple. Fantastic guitar riffs that is a slow blues kind of jam. But what really undermines this record is the last track, A200, and it's just trying to be like the Mule or something. There's this drumming situation going on, but with proggy, spacey keyboards at the very beginning of the track. It kind of reminds me actually of 905 by The Who, I think it was. And it's a bit of an odd little song. It is terrible compared to the rest of this album, which is a very good album. Really do recommend you come back and visit this one if you, haven't listened to it in a while, because, when I was going through this list and thinking of albums to do, I came across this, re-listened to it, and went, damn, this is actually a solid record here, There's really good stuff on offer. Plus, I also love Deep Purple, what can I say? So yeah, A200 is just the track that just falls apart for me at the end of the day. Not a very good track. Maybe they're trying to just do something again, with some previous songs, but it just didn't work. It just doesn't work still. It doesn't sound too good at the end of it. As far as bad tracks go, this one feels like cheating, but we're going to be talking about Pink Floyd and The Wall. I say cheating because technically this record is, it's just one whole concept record, isn't it? So without each track, you don't know what you're listening to at the end of the day. And when you get down to The Wall, there are amazing songs. Of course, we're talking about Another Brick in the Wall, Comfortably Numb. All of these songs are cemented in our youth, I suppose. But at the end of the day, when you're going through it, Vera is a very weak track. It's this little piece. Maybe I'm cheating again, I say this, but it just always, when it got to this song, I'm like, just skip this. Bring on, I want to get to Comfortably Numb, because, Bring the Boys Back Home follows and does that thing as well. But yeah, it was always a slow piece that kind of like, all right, let's move it on, people. Let's move it on, Roger. You're going on. You're trottling on and trying to make up things like I'm doing right now. But yes, as far as this record goes, very weak song in the whole mix of it. I don't like it. I always skip it. So the next one up is going to be a track from Appetite for Destruction from Guns N' Roses. And I know what you're thinking. How is there any bad tracks from this record? Well, I tell you there is, because with the song Anything Goes, it's really at the arse end of the album, and unfortunately not as good as the follow-up track Rocket Queen, which is an absolutely epic way to close off this record. It's interesting that you see Guns N' Roses always listed with hair metal, because at the end of the day, they were on the deathbed of hair metal. It was big early on with Motley Crue and all these other groups. And then Guns N' Roses comes along, probably makes the best hair metal album that you'll ever hear. And it's right on the death rattle, everyone. They were breathing their last breath. And luckily they changed it up a little bit. Very little, but a little bit for their follow-up albums. But yeah, Appetite for Destruction. Wow. What a record. What a way to kick off a year. 1987 would have been an epic year to go through, because you have Welcome to the Jungle. That is ingrained in everyone's brains, isn't it? I mean, that is such a cool song, hitting over 1 billion streams, I see, as well. With Night Train, another cracker, and Paradise City. A whole bunch of tracks on this are just so good. It's always fun coming back to this record, and listening to it from nearly start to finish, with the exception, I should say, of Anything Goes, which is such it's a lackluster song, unfortunately. It's just, I don't know, poppy, not as good, especially compared to the rest. Maybe because the staple was set so high, this song is just not as good. If this was on any other record by any other band, this might have been a decent enough track. But maybe the bar was just, as I said, set way too high when it came to Appetite for Destruction, because wow. Ugh. I mean, how are you gonna compare Anything Goes to Welcome to the Jungle? How are you gonna compare Anything Goes to Night Train, to Rocket Queen, to Paradise City? All of these songs are just mind-blowingly great, and yeah, the tune at the end of the day isn't just catchy enough for me. The riff is forgettable. Sometimes I forget this song even exists. So, at the grand scheme of things, Anything Goes can well take its advice and get it the hell out of here. Next up, we're going to be talking about American Idiot by Green Day. And this was such a big album upon its release. I remember it being blasted everywhere. American Idiot was hitting the waves and just taking us for the ride. Fantastic video clip as well accompanying it. It was everywhere, and you couldn't escape this new wave of Green Day, their new vision, if you will, born out of necessity, because the original tapes that they were recording were, well, stolen. They ended up just saying, screw it, we're going to re-record the next album, and American Idiot was born. And wow, I mean, at the end of the day, what an album to lose. To come out of it with American Idiot instead, I think that's probably the right step at the end of the day. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't stolen, as the band say, and they just got rid of it because they weren't happy. And who could blame them, considering their previous efforts weren't exactly as strong with, Warning. It wasn't exactly a great album. So American Idiot really carved a new vision for the band, if you will. And when I come down to this album and say, what is the track that doesn't get as much airplay as it really should? I'm talking about Extraordinary Girl, an odd track that is lumped in with Letter Bomb, which is a much superior song, and unfortunately these two songs are joined together. But I'm talking about the first half of this track. I'm talking about Extraordinary Girl. And this track is anything but extraordinary. It's very ordinary. It has this beginning, which is just this Eastern eclectic kind of sounds, and yeah, okay, that's interesting, I suppose. And then it boils down to such a basic bitch song that it just isn't very fun. Okay, yeah, it's this common little drum beat, dun 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 dun. And yeah, it's a very forgettable track at the end of the day, with a whole bunch of tracks that are just great, absolutely great, Jesus of Suburbia, amazing song. Holiday, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, yeah, I could live with them. Wake Me Up When September Ends, yeah, I could probably get rid of that track every time I hear it, but I don't know. And St. Jimmy, of course, all these songs. It's a great album. I got to go back and re-listen to it. It's been too long since I've heard this album. But yeah, when you're going down to this record, when I was getting down to Extraordinary Girl, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, this exists. It's unfortunate, but yeah, that's what it was. And you can't necessarily have legendary albums all completely full, especially when you got 12 tracks running out a bit over an hour long. It's very hard to complete and get that landing and have everything be perfect. So yeah, unfortunately, American Idiot is undermined by the track Extraordinary Girl, and it's even made worse because it's lumped in with Letter Bomb, a pretty decent track. Oh, I am sure that this one's going to piss everyone off. We're going to go with Jimi Hendrix and his record, Are You Experienced? Wow, what a way to start off your career by launching an album that almost became a generation's theme. Hendrix is so well known for his time with Woodstock and all his guitar playing that he's influenced many, many generations of guitarists that have come. And who can blame him with tracks like Purple Haze, Manic Depression, Hey Joe, and all these other ones. The Wind Cries, Mary, Fire. Wow. Covered by the Red Hot Chili Peppers as well on their Mother's Milk album. Decent track on that one. Very different as well to the original Fire. While Fire was a little bit of a faster track, the Red Hot Chili Peppers made it much, much faster. Sorry, I should say they made it a lot more faster than the original. I know he played it quicker in live performances, but yeah, nothing on the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're just like, yep, screw it, we're going to take this tempo and bump it up to about 180 beats per minute and get it done. So yeah, what is the bad track when you're talking about songs like Third Stone from the Sun, Foxy Lady, and Highway Child? Well, unfortunately, we're talking about the title track, Are You Experienced? Because it's not a very good track. This psychedelic reverse tape weird thing that just sits there and you're kind of like, why? You know, it's okay, we're going to try something out. Hey, it's the 60s, we're going to do psychedelic crap, don't we, for this record? Everyone's doing it. The Beatles did it, and I went over to London, shortly. Actually, I think he goes to London a few years after, but still, everyone's doing it. They're doing reverse tapes here and playing the guitars in reverse and then learning to play those solos and stuff like that. Let's do it here. Let's do something weird and wonderful. Well, no. I hate this track with a passion when I'm going over it and going, yuck, I don't want to hear this one. Yeah, so unfortunately, this song is, and it's the title track, it undermines this absolutely grandeur album, from an artist who was taken from us way too quickly and joined the 27 Club, unfortunately. So, yeah, play some Hendrix then. One of the most iconic album covers for 91, and no, we're not talking about Nirvana. We're going to go with Bad Motorfinger here from Soundgarden. Released shortly around about that time, I believe, as well. I think there was this explosion of phenomenal music around about this 40-day gap. And it was something like Bad Motorfinger, Metallica's Black Album, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and Smells Like Teen Spirit. All these albums came out in a very, very short gap, 3 or 4 weeks gap or something like that. And yeah, when it comes to it, geez, have you got a record on your hands, Soundgarden? Because, wow, Rusty Cage, great single. Outshined, amazing. Slaves and Bulldozers, I know it gets overlooked a lot, but people love that track. And Jesus Christ, Pose. Anthemic pieces for the 90s at the end of the day. And a lot of other tracks here that are undervalued, like Searching With My Good Eye Closed and Room 1,000 Years Wide. But where is the bad track? What's the bad track that you're talking about, you ask? Well, for me, it's going to be saying Mind Riot, because I don't like it. It's just weird. Again, it's a psychedelic kind of piece amongst the record, similar to what I just said about Jimi Hendrix. It's this odd piece in a record that has a very firmly rooted sound, I guess you could say. And here we are with Mind Riot, trying to be a bit 60s, trying to take it out of that era for a little bit with this one track, and it just unfortunately sounds like crap. I don't like Mind Riot. It takes me out of my mindset when I'm going through this record, especially coming off the back of Room 1,000 Years Wide and that thick, heavy bass line and its booming riff. So, why? Why is Mind Riot here? I kind of wish that this track would be left off releases. I'm sure a lot of people were saying, hey, I like Mind Riot. That's a solid track. And that's your thing, I suppose. I don't. And I believe that is a really bad track. Just my point of view here. Maybe people will agree with me and say that. Comment below if you do. For the next record, we're going to be talking about the Smashing Pumpkins record, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Most of these albums that I've discussed so far have only been single discs, or, about 13, maybe tracks at the best. So what has made this one more impressive than the rest I've mentioned is that there are 28 tracks on this. It's a 2 CD set. If you haven't heard it, I'd highly suggest it, because this is one of my favourite records from the 90s, and I just absolutely love Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I come back to this so many times. I've come back to this record and played it from start to finish, all the way through, and it's a great 2-hour ride And it's unfortunate because, Smashing Pumpkins followed up with Autumn. Yay. Autumn's 1, 2, and 3. And it's like a 2.5 hour trivial nonsense piece that everyone should miss when it comes to the Smashing Pumpkins albums. So, what makes Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness... I can't even say that word, can I? What makes Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness amazing is everything about this goddamn album. From its opener, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, to Tonight, Jelly Belly, Zero, Here Is No Why, I love that one. Bullet with Butterfly Wings, Zero, other tracks like this. And you go over to the second album, and you've got Where Boys Fear to Tread, Bodies, 33, 1979, XYU, very underrated track, I feel. But it's the next track on that, We Only Come Out at Night, that it's like, oh shit, what are you guys doing here? I get that they were trying out some very different things with this record compared to, their last two efforts. And We Only Come Out at Night, that's one of them, I suppose. They were doing, they had done a bunch of acoustic-y kind of sets, and this one's like, okay, we're going to mix electronica and put it into this weird harpsichord, and we're going to ram it through with a bit of a semi-acoustic-y thing. I don't know what the hell this instrument is, but, that We Only Come Out at Night. We only come out at night when the days are much too bright. Yuck. Why? Why is this track on here? I don't like this song. And I'm pretty sure I don't stand alone in that sentiment because, this feels like the track that undermines the entire record. Otherwise, massive props to this record. I love the rest of it. This one song, though, get rid of it. Destroy it. So, if you haven't listened to this album, highly recommend it. One of the best ones from the 90s. By the time 2003 rocked around and the White Stripes made their next album, they were already a bit of a famous band beforehand, but really Seven Nation Army just catapulted them into that stardom status and became a household known song, I guess you could say. I mean, shit, this thing's played almost 1.5 billion times. That's billion. Seven Nation Army, such an incredible hook. And that video clip as well to accompany it. Wow, stop animation with that. It's so cool. I love that video clip. And, Jack White and Meg White were just this interesting little duo playing along, doing garage rock. And it seems so simple. At the end of the day, it works. It's so good. And you got other fantastic tracks on here. Girl, You Have No Faith in Medicine, Black Math, I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself. All these, the Hardest Button to Button as well. Little Acorns, I love that song. But all these tracks, really cool. But then it comes to the end of the album. And the end of the album, unfortunately, has that real quirky song, It's True That We Love One Another. It's like they were almost addressing the one that the tabloids were coming out and saying, hey, are you guys like brother and sister? Are you married? What's the go here? And so this song comes out. And what are you guys doing here? Because it's this weird little acoustic-y piece, I don't know, kind of a country twang to it almost, and it's just this duo singing, It's true that we love one another, I love Jack White like a little brother, and this little story of little bickering and other things about each other and getting it on, all this crap. Anyway, I just really hated this track every time I came to the end of the album. It's like, time to get this thing out, throw it out of the Discman. We're going to the next track. We're going to the next album, I should say. But look, at the end of the day, it's not bad. It's only a 50-minute album. And other than that, you got 13 great tracks beforehand. Thank you for being at the last track. Thank you for being at the end of the album. Better than some of the other songs or albums that I've mentioned as well, where they've been in the middle. So thank you. Thank you for putting the bad track at the very end. And I'm sure the band knew that they were just writing. They were just doing something quirky, something weird. They didn't care. Whatever. I'll put this song out here and it will be at the end as a bit of a hidden gem, I suppose. But I kind of wish that it was left off. Anyway, whatever. It's on there now, and Elephant will always forever have this one bad song on the album. This next one that I'm going to be talking about is Tool's album 10,000 Days, and If I was cheating before with one of the other ones, then I'm really cheating here by saying this next track. Because we're going to be talking about the week track Vigente Tres. And yeah, I know it's Tool we're talking about. They're going to have weird little things on their albums sometimes. And when I made this list, I kind of started off and said, alright, no little short songs that are jokes or sound effects between tracks. But this one is 5 minutes and 2 seconds long, and I will go into the story behind it as to why it's cheating. But yeah, Vigente Tres is just pure sound effects warbling in between your ears for the whole length of its runtime. And it's like, what is this? It's at the very end of the album. I don't get it. It's just white noise, essentially. It's just odd crap. And you know what? I remember the first time I heard this, I went, what's going on here? Why is this white noise here? What? I don't get it. What are you trying to shoot? What are you doing? What are you doing, Tool? You're confusing me. Not a hard thing to do. But yeah, it's just this weird little sound effects played at the very end. It wasn't until much later on that I found out that this song actually goes with another song and is meant to be played with another song at the same time. What am I talking about here? I know you're asking the question. What the bloody hell are you wobbling on about? Well, the title track, 10,000 Days, has been separated into 2 parts on the record. If you see, you have part 1, 6 minutes and 11 seconds. Then you have part 2, it's 11 minutes and 13 seconds. And then you have Vigente Tres, 5 minutes and 2 seconds. Quick math here, but that adds up to 11:13. So some people decided, what if we took Vigente Tres and Wings for Mary Part 1, link them together, and then we're going to play 10,000 Days Part 2 at the same time as this little weird song that we've made up. And damn, it suddenly made a new song. What the hell were Tool thinking? It's such a bloody weird concept. Alright, we're going to take this one little section here. This is little sound effects that could have made the song so much better. And we're going to make a separate track. I mean, it's not taking away from the 10,000 Wings Part 2 song. You can listen to that song by itself and it's still a great track. It's not missing it. But for a true listener experience, yes, I know, Tool fans going off here, you're going to want to listen to the version that has mixed them all, and I'm sure it's available on YouTube somewhere, because 10,000 Days should be listened to with those sound effects merged in there. And that's why I've said I'm cheating when I'm doing this one, a little bonus one for the 11th, and especially because it's also the 11th track. Maybe I timed that one right, didn't I? So yeah, Vigente Tres, terrible track, but when you add it on top, becomes a great track. So I don't know, I don't feel like it's cheating too much, because it's just sound effects, and it doesn't take away it doesn't take away from the original. It's just something that is an option, I guess, at the end of the day. So say what you will in regards to that one. Hey, Tool fans, if there's any more things you know about the album 10,000 Days and Secrets, I'd be curious to read about them. I feel like Tool fans, they can go on for days in regards to the band and what has been found. There's certainly some interesting stories from 10,000 Days. So that does it. That is all the albums that I found and said, you know what, these are legendary albums except for one bloody track on the mix. And I think that this list will really just show or highlight the capabilities of some of these records and how they were just falling short just ever so slightly by one track that really stumbled them before the finish line. Because to achieve that status of having a flawless record, that's hard to do, especially when it came to like Pink Floyd and The Wall, which is nearly perfect. But Pink Floyd are an odd band. They've got 2 flawless records at the end of the day, and it's almost made better by if it didn't have Vera. But I know that Vera has to be included on that thing because it tells the story, and you kind of get that at the end of the day. I could probably say the same thing about couple of tracks, I guess, on Tommy by The Who. So I don't know, people. Comment below, is there any albums that I missed? Or you guys would think, hey, this is a legendary album except for this one song. Comment below and tell me what you think that I left off this list. Or tell me what your thoughts are in regards to this list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Curious to read these comments. As always, people, you have a great day. Stay spicy. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music-related content because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.